Hey, good evening, guys. We're back for another night, and got a good shot last night of the moon, and that's Saturn off to the left. And it doesn't look like that because tonight, because the moon has shifted quite a bit in the sky, but Saturn is still rising, or I should say sinking, in the western sky just after sunset, and if you have a good pair of binoculars, you can definitely see the rings. But anyway, it's a pretty good view, and I'm still working on the book, and it's not quite done. Things, when the book is done, things will return to a more normal schedule. But right now, I'm pretty well tapped out, and it's kind of difficult to put these broadcasts together right now, but I want to kind of keep things on track in the meantime. So we'll check things out anyway. Current picture looking like this right here. This is the thickness and isobars. So this is kind of like the big picture of what's happening. Looks like we have a new Alberta clipper coming south. Kind of like a reinforcement of the cold air. So it's stretching from about Ohio down to Memphis and down to East Texas. So winds coming around to the north in most places along that front, and this is being driven by this 1032 millibar high. So this whole region here is under cold air advection, but things are a lot different out west. We've got warm air advection out in that region right there. Lots of rain up in Washington and Oregon, and a couple systems off the coast. There's one right there leaking to another low offshore, and here's where we can really look at it. That's on the water vapor imagery. And there it is right there. So this is showing the Pineapple Express flowing up into the Pacific Northwest. So a lot of moisture coming from the southerly latitudes, right up from the subtropics and up to the west coast right there. So wherever that plume is headed, that's kind of like a big fire hose of energy heading for the coast right there. And behind it, you can see the wrapped appearance of the occluded systems further to the northwest there. So a couple of really good systems, and this one right here in the Gulf of Mexico, that's looking pretty potent also. Just off the coast of Mexico, it is dry, so there is dry air to the south, but once this whole pattern shifts to the east, we will see the moisture start to pick up a little bit on the west coast. Okay, here's our upper level analysis, 250 millibars. And the shading corresponds to jet stream velocity. So this whole region here, looking about 100 to 120 knots. That's the polar front jet coming southward, and then another branch over the northeast U.S. like that. Probably a little bit of a subtropical jet, perhaps, maybe linking up with some of this polar front jet energy. And that could be responsible for the 100-knot flow there at Del Rio. So this right here, this is probably a segment of the subtropical jet. And you can see where the isotachs kind of bow down like that. That's another sign right there. And that's separate from the polar front jet core, which is affecting more the northern states there. Surface analysis looking like this right here. You can see the northerly winds at this hour in Texas. These are temperatures in Celsius, so we're looking at 40s and 50s in Oklahoma and North Texas. Leading edge of the front runs from Ontario through Ohio, down to about Memphis and around to East Texas. So there we go. There's the leading edge of that front. So it is kind of cool ahead of it, and this is kind of a reinforcement. Not particularly cold. We can see up in Minnesota, temperatures running about -9 Celsius, which is in the teens. That is a little bit cold, yeah, definitely, but could be a lot worse this time of year. And then in the Pacific Northwest, we can see some of the rain. And a good indicator of that is the purple color. If you kind of key your eyes into the purple, you can see all the dots here of rain. So just a quick roundup of where all that rain is. From Prince Rupert all the way down to Vancouver, and pretty much all the way down the coast to just north of Arcata. So a lot of rain there, and that's where that Pineapple Express is coming on shore there. All right, let's see here. I think what I'll do is I'll look at the Texas region and just kind of give you a quick look at that. That's the only place really besides the Midwest where we have weather going on. And you can see that front coming southward. This is earlier this afternoon. And then during the evening, running this up to right now, looking like that right there. So stronger flow coming in from the DFW and Abilene area right there. Winds showing about 15 to 20 knots there. And then you can see that freeze line coming into Oklahoma. So by daybreak, we're going to be looking at about like this here. So definite hard freeze for Oklahoma City and Tulsa. Pretty much anywhere from Nashville to north of Little Rock to north of Dallas all the way to the Red River. And Lubbock, north of there, temperatures are going to be freezing tonight. And then for tomorrow, we're going to have continued cold air advection, so it'll be a little bit cool. Daytime highs looking to be in the 50s across much of that region. And then we're starting to get some downslope on the high plains right here. Temperatures coming up to the 60s in eastern Colorado. And then tomorrow night, it'll be another cold night because you can see the high pressure right here. It's not done passing over Texas and Arkansas. So there is the high. So we're looking forward to be cold tomorrow night. There's the temperatures around daybreak, lots of 30s and 40s, and a pretty good freeze all the way down into Louisiana. And then we should warm up pretty good for Thanksgiving. So there's Thanksgiving about 3 p.m., 70s in West Texas, and 50s and 60s for the rest of the region. And the temperatures should be kind of on the mild side. And let me see if I can pull up the weather in the Midwest. Okay, here's our Midwest sector. So also in that area, the front is coming on down through. Northwesterly winds back behind that front. Current frame is looking like this right here. So the freeze line coming past Chicago up to South Bend, in through Champaign and to about Columbia. Leading edge, pretty much where I pointed earlier. And then for daybreak, lots of 20s coming down through the Midwest. So we'll be looking at about 24 there in Chicago, 23 at Des Moines, and 27 at Detroit. Only a little bit of a warm-up, barely above freezing there in Chicago and Detroit. So very cold weather there. And then for Thanksgiving, going to be looking at 30s and 40s with westerly winds, so that's going to indicate a little bit of downslope flow affecting that area. Warm air advection settling in across the central and Midwest regions. A quick look at the long wave pattern looks like this. I'm trying to get the date data in there. You can see the date up at the top right. A few days ago, it was looking like this back here. We had a long wave pattern across the eastern U.S. That's not quite showing very well. Okay, I'll just tell you that this is for the 18th. This was what we had on Saturday. Long wave troughing across the eastern U.S. And then Sunday, very deep troughing across the eastern U.S. And then Monday looking like that right there. And that brings us up to today. So you can see a very strong troughing off the west coast. And that flow right there is helping to bring that moisture onto the west coast right there. A very high amplitude pattern with a strong southerly component in that segment right there. Okay, so that'll bring us up to the forecast. Let me bring up the GFS panel here. I think before I do that, I'm going to give you the infrared imagery. I'll set that kind of on the western U.S. right there. So that's what's happening out there on the infrared imagery. Checking in on chat, Fun with Tech is here, and Burl H., Robert Continelli. Mr. Manlet reporting 30 degrees in northern Illinois with some wind chill. Ryan Toomey's reported they got blasted last night by severe weather at 3 a.m. Alerts went off and woke everybody in the house up. Nasty lightning across the sky, stiff wind. No tornado warnings. A handful of very close, in-range 500-yard lightning strikes. Yeah, it is getting to be that season. Usually in December and January, we have kind of a max of severe weather down in this region right here. So this is kind of like organized severe weather season for Florida, the southern states, and part of East Texas. And then as we get into February and March, that starts shifting to the north. And then towards June, we find that moving up into the Central Plains like that. We have, let's see here, Sue M. and Electric Dog is here. I'm Cat Bug is here. Love these live events. Looking for Thanksgiving there. Yep, so we have just kind of a quiet night tonight. Most of the storms are offshore, off the coast of Louisiana right here. And looks like maybe a little bit of lee side clouds in Montana. I'm not sure if that's reaching the ground or not, but it's definitely showing a very cold appearance to the cloud tops up there near Great Falls. All right, so let's head into the forecast, and that way I can get finished on the book. Hopefully we'll get that done here very, very soon. In fact, it does have to be done by this week. Okay, so there's our current frame right there, and we're showing the high pressure moving into the Central Plains. Cold air mass moving into East Texas through Ohio like we were showing earlier. And most of the cold air mass, the cold air advection, is right behind that right there. Okay, so moving forward over the next couple of days, the main feature that we see is the high pressure across Texas and Illinois. That's shifting very slowly to the southeast, and this is bringing with it cool evenings and very cold nights there. Temperatures below freezing in some areas. And then for Thursday, Thanksgiving, we're looking at this right here. You can still see ridging across Louisiana, Arkansas, into Texas. So still very cool, dry weather with warm afternoons. And down in Florida, we can see a little bit of a storm system coming together there. Some of the cold air moving offshore, getting a little bit of bear clinic development, and we've got ourselves a low right there off Tampa. So that'll be crossing over Florida a little bit. Things kind of unsettled in that region. And then we get another outbreak of cool weather around Saturday. Kind of a reinforcing shot of cold air coming into the eastern half of the U.S. Looks like things moderate a little bit out west. So it looks like our long wave pattern is kind of locked up and not moving very much. It's kind of defined by a ridge out to the west like that and troughing to the east. So we're kind of stuck in this pattern, not really bringing much of that precip inland at this time. But it is definitely hitting Washington, Oregon, and British Columbia there. Lots of rain. And if any of that makes it across the Rockies and Alberta, That snow can help set up and reinforce some of the cold air masses that move into the U.S. itself. And indeed, it looks like there it goes, dumping snow cover across northern Alberta. So that could be a source of polar air generation for next week. Things are pretty stagnant. I guess that's the word I'm looking for. Monday and Tuesday, high pressure across the southeast U.S. and downslope flow in central U.S. right there. Looks like another little Alberta clipper starting to come together here. We get one little wave move across the northern states, so that's leaving us with a front kind of like that right there. System developing. And up north, it does look like cold air is also developing up there. Looks like height falls coming together and 510 decameter thickness. So things are cooling down quite a bit. So the next front next week is on the 28th and 29th. And there's that push of cold air. And that'll sweep through around Wednesday and Thursday, so we're looking at about a week from now. Looks like some thunderstorms and showers there for Florida and Georgia. And just kind of a stagnant weather pattern there. It looks like things are starting to come together in the southwestern U.S. You can see the thickness lines bunching up around December 2nd. Looks like a kind of a warm air advection pattern in Texas. So it looks like something is happening in this region. And yeah, there it goes right there. An inverted trough right there. And then a cold front down across Mexico. And snow in the higher elevations right there. This is December 4th. And then it looks like that emerges out into Texas on the 5th. And this could be accompanied by thunderstorms. And that's largely because the Gulf is open. You can see on the previous frame right there, deep flow off the Gulf and warm air advection pattern. That's kind of what we need for thunderstorms in Texas. And then we get a pretty strong outbreak in the Great Lakes region. That's pretty potent right there. 1035 millibar high up there in the Canadian prairies. So that'll hit the Great Lakes and northeast U.S. pretty hard. And then we get to the end of the frame. We're up to December 7th there. So that's about as far as we can go. Okay, so let me take one last look at the chat here. David Moore missed the start. High winds in West Texas today. Weather Service called for 20, gusting to 33. And Thomas Copeland checking in also. So anyway, that's about all I got for tonight. I'm going to return to work on the book and see if I can start wrapping that up. And there will be a segment at the end. It's got some of the sounds of Texas at nighttime. So you might want to hang around for that. So that's about all I got for tonight. Thanks for joining, and we'll see you tomorrow.